In the sprawling, turbulent history of Westeros, few names evoke as much awe, reverence, and fear as that of Balerion the Black Dread. This dragon was not merely a beast, he was a living legend, an ancient and colossal force whose very existence embodied the raw, untamed power that shaped an entire continent. His scales, as black and lustrous as polished onyx, glistened under the sun's light, while his eyes blazed with a fierce, fiery intensity, an unyielding reflection of the destruction and dominance he wielded. When Balerion unfurled his enormous wings, spanning wide enough to cast a shadow that could swallow entire villages, even the bravest warriors found themselves reduced to quivering souls, silenced by the sheer presence of this monstrous dragon. Balerion was far more than the largest among the legendary dragons of House Targaryen. He was a living weapon of conquest, an unstoppable force that forged the very foundations of the Seven Kingdoms. When Aegon the Conqueror set foot upon the shores of Westeros, it was Balerion who carried him across the skies, an unforgettable sight that would become the bedrock of legend and lore. Together, Aegon and Balerion became the architects of a new world order, forging the Iron Throne, not through mere politics or diplomacy, but by the scorching breath of dragonfire. The molten iron that shaped the throne itself came from Balerion's flames, his fire melting the swords of Aegon's enemies into a jagged, twisted seat of power that symbolized the birth of Targaryen rule. By the time Aegon rode Balerion into battle, the dragon was already old, his vast size overshadowing even the other great dragons of the era, such as Vhagar and Meraxes. His enormous wings and bulky frame made him slower than his younger kin, but what Balerion lacked in speed, he made up for with overwhelming strength and raw power. When he unleashed his fiery breath, entire keeps crumbled to ash, forests ignited in wild infernos, and even the sturdiest stone walls melted under the relentless heat. Perhaps no moment better encapsulates Balerion's destructive might than the annihilation of Harrenhal, once the largest and most impregnable fortress in Westeros. The towering castle was reduced to smoldering ruins by Balerion's fire, its stone towers twisted into molten remnants, and with it, House Hor, the line of Harren the Black, was wiped from existence. Today, the scorched remains of Harrenhal stand as a haunting monument to Balerion's power, its ruined walls a grim reminder of the devastating force of dragonfire. But Balerion's legacy stretches far beyond the wars he fought or the castles he raised. He was the living symbol of House Targaryen's dominance across Westeros, a direct link to the bloodline of Old Valyria, the ancient civilization of dragon lords that had once ruled the world. His bond with Aegon was the stuff of legend, a partnership forged in fire and blood, conquest and ambition. Yet Balerion's story did not end with Aegon's death. Later Targaryens continued to ride the Black Dread, though none could match the fearsome synergy shared between Aegon and Balerion. Among them, Maegor the Cruel became infamous as one of Balerion's riders, wielding the dragon's devastating power to brutalize his enemies and tighten his grip on the Iron Throne. The sight of Maegor atop Balerion, raining fire and death upon those who opposed him, became a nightmare that haunted Westeros for generations. It was said that Maegor's foes could spot the silhouette of Balerion long before the heat of his breath reached them. By then, all hope was lost. Even the Black Dread was not immune to the ravages of time. As centuries passed, the great dragon began to show the signs of age. His mighty wings slowed, and his movements grew ponderous and weighed down by years. The last Targaryen to ride Balerion was King Viserys I, though by that point, the dragon was but a shadow of his former self. Viserys rode Balerion only once before the great beast succumbed to old age, passing peacefully, a rare end for a creature so defined by violence and destruction. Balerion's skull now rests within the Red Keep, a silent and imposing monument to the beast that once dominated the skies. Large enough for a person to stand inside its open jaws, it serves as a stark reminder of the dragon's enormous size and fearsome power. Though the Black Dread was never truly subdued, only time, an unstoppable, indifferent force, could claim him. Yet Balerion's story lives on, immortalized in the myths and legends whispered by the small folk throughout the Seven Kingdoms. They speak of the great black dragon in hushed tones, telling tales of how his vast wings could blot out the sun, how the heat of his fiery breath could be felt from miles away, and how his thunderous roar echoed in every corner of the realm. To many, Balerion was more than a dragon. He was a god of fire and fury, a living reminder of mankind's mortality. For House Targaryen, he was the ultimate symbol of their power, a creature whose very name kept the lords of Westeros in line, for to defy the Targaryens was to invite the wrath of Balerion's fire. His existence alone solidified their rule, making it nearly unassailable for generations. Even in death, Balerion's legend only grew. His name became synonymous with the Targaryen dynasty, a legacy unmatched by any other dragon, no matter how fearsome. Throughout history, many dragons have flown across Westeros, but few have left such a lasting imprint on the world. Balerion was not merely a weapon of conquest, he was a force that shaped the land itself. His flames forged the Iron Throne, his fire turned mighty castles to ruins, and his presence inspired both terror and awe in equal measure. The Black Dread was the living embodiment of power, destruction, and the indomitable will of House Targaryen. His memory endures in the tales told by firelight, in the melted stones of Harrenhal, and in the shadow of the very throne he helped create. Fast forward to a later age, and among the dragons that accompanied Daenerys Targaryen, one stood out not just for size and ferocity, but for his unbreakable bond with his rider, Drogon. Draped in black scales streaked with deep crimson, this dragon was a force of nature, larger and more aggressive than his siblings. His growth, unfettered by the constraints of captivity, made him the largest of Daenerys' dragons, a living symbol of her rise to power and a devastating weapon in her campaign to claim the Iron Throne. From the moment Drogon first unleashed his fiery breath, it was clear he was destined for far more than a mere companion's role. Drogon's flames became a crucial instrument of war, turning tides and claiming victories. At the Battle of Meereen, his firestorm decimated enemy forces, and later, his defense of Winterfell proved decisive in the war for the North. But it was not only his raw strength that set him apart, it was the deep, almost human bond he shared with Daenerys. She was more than his rider. She was his purpose, guiding every sweep of his mighty wings and every breath of fire. This connection was on full display during Westeros' most pivotal moments. When the Lannister army was decimated under his inferno, Drogon's fiery wrath changed the course of battle in an instant. Later, during the notorious sack of King's Landing, his flames consumed the city, reducing it to ashes and toppling even the mighty Red Keep itself. But Drogon's destruction was not mindless or blind obedience. It was a reflection of Daenerys' own fiery emotions, a shared fury that engulfed the city in flames. The devastation was a stark reminder that no mortal power, no matter how great, could stand against a dragon fully unleashed. Yet, beyond his fearsome might, Drogon's intelligence shone brightly, particularly in his final moments with Daenerys. After her death, he did not lash out at Jon Snow, the man who ended her life, despite having every reason to do so. Instead, he turned his fury upon the Iron Throne itself, the very symbol of power and madness that had driven his rider's tragic downfall. In burning the throne, Drogon demonstrated a level of awareness and understanding rarely attributed to dragons. His act was deliberate, a statement against the destructive allure of power and the chaos it wrought upon Westeros. This final act left an indelible impression on those who witnessed it and on the countless who would later recount the tale. While dragons have often been seen as mere beasts of war, Drogon's actions revealed a depth of intelligence and insight, transcending simple loyalty to his rider. By destroying the Iron Throne, he symbolically rejected the corruptive force that had shaped Daenerys' fate. Despite the carnage and chaos left in his wake, Drogon's story ends on a note of quiet dignity. Carrying Daenerys' lifeless body, he flew eastward, disappearing into the unknown. His ultimate destination remains a mystery, but the haunting image of a dragon soaring into the distance with his rider cradled in his claws endures as a poignant testament to their bond. Though his fate is uncertain, Drogon's legacy is etched deeply into Westeros' history, much like the scorch marks he left upon the Red Keep. Drogon was not only unparalleled in strength and size, but also remarkable for his loyalty and intelligence. He was not merely a destructive force, but the living embodiment of Daenerys' ambition and vision for the world. Together, they forged an unstoppable force that altered the course of history. Yet, in his final act, Drogon revealed a wisdom that transcended the devastation they wrought, embodying the complex nature of dragons in Westeros, creatures of immense power, fierce loyalty, and a capacity for both overwhelming destruction and profound restraint. From his hatching to becoming the most powerful dragon in the known world, Drogon's journey remains one of the most compelling tales in the annals of dragonkind. He left behind a landscape scarred by fire and destruction, a harsh reminder etched both in the terrain and in the memories of those who lived through his wrath. These remnants stand as silent witnesses to the fact that wild dragons, though they can be controlled to some extent, are never truly tamed. His legacy, much like that of his rider, is deeply complex, woven with triumphs and tragedies alike. Their victories were carved from the ashes of burning cities, the ruins of shattered armies, and the downfall of broken thrones. Yet, throughout all this chaos, he remained unwaveringly loyal, a steadfast guardian at Daenerys' side until the very end. The question of where he flew after her death lingers unanswered, shrouded in mystery. But no matter the unknowns, his place in the saga of Westeros is indisputable. Forever etched in history as the fiercest of Daenerys' dragons, he was the mighty creature who carried her to the pinnacle of power and stood watch over her final moments. Though his name may gradually fade into legend, the mark he left, both figuratively in the hearts of the people and literally across the scarred Seven Kingdoms, will endure. Every ruined fortress, every whispered tale of his immense might and fury keeps his spirit alive. The legacy of this dragon burns as fiercely and defiantly as the creature himself, a symbol of untamed power and unwavering loyalty. In the shadow cast by his larger, more aggressive sibling, Rhaegal held a quieter yet equally important role in Daenerys' quest for the Iron Throne. His emerald green scales shimmered with bronze highlights, and his wings bore the colors of a setting sun, deep oranges and warm reds that made him a striking presence amid the turmoil of battle. While his regal appearance commanded respect, it was his loyalty and unwavering strength that truly earned him a cherished place within Daenerys' army. Though less fearsome in sheer destructive power than his brother, Rhaegal's role in the campaign was no less vital. His impact was not always loud or devastating, but it was essential, steadying the forces around him with a presence that balanced fury with precision. During the legendary Battle of Winterfell, where the living faced the relentless onslaught of the dead, Rhaegal soared alongside Drogon. Together, they unleashed torrents of fire upon the Night King's armies, a scene reminiscent of past horrors, like the devastation of Harrenhal and King's Landing. While Drogon personified fire and fury, Rhaegal symbolized balance, his flight marked by careful restraint and sharp focus. This very restraint allowed Jon Snow to forge a unique bond with Rhaegal in a pivotal moment that changed the course of their shared story. Jon, the king in the north, rode Rhaegal into battle for the first time, a powerful and breathtaking symbol of his hidden Targaryen heritage. Though Daenerys had long commanded the skies alone, Jon's inaugural ride introduced a new dynamic to their intertwined destinies. Rhaegal, once solely Daenerys' ally, became a living bridge to Jon's lineage and future, a tangible link between man and dragon, past and present. Though brief, the bond between Jon and Rhaegal carried immense weight. In that fleeting connection, Jon was elevated beyond the role of a mere mortal ruler. He became part of the ancient legacy of dragons and fire, tied irrevocably to the Targaryen bloodline and its power. His first flight on Rhaegal was a moment of awe, a visual confirmation of the deep-rooted heritage that shaped his destiny. But Rhaegal's tale, much like so many in the brutal world of Westeros, was not destined for a peaceful ending. Despite his loyalty and formidable strength, his life was abruptly and tragically cut short during the battle at Dragonstone. The suddenness of his death shocked both Daenerys and those who bore witness. Struck down by one of Euron Greyjoy's scorpions, giant ballistae engineered to slay dragons, Rhaegal's majestic flight came to a violent halt. This loss marked a crucial turning point in Daenerys' campaign, a moment that sent her spiraling toward the madness that would ultimately define her final days. Rhaegal's death was more than just a military setback. It was a deeply personal blow to Daenerys. Already battered by the loss of trusted advisors and close companions, losing Rhaegal left her with only one remaining dragon, a stark symbol of her fragile and slipping grasp on power. Each loss chipped away at her resolve, and Rhaegal's death felt like the final shattering crack. This tragedy fueled a widespread theory among fans that the death of Rhaegal was a critical trigger in Daenerys' eventual downfall. Many believe that the combined weight of losing Rhaegal alongside key allies like Missandei and Jorah Mormont drove Daenerys into an emotional abyss from which she could not recover. Devoid of the symbolic and literal strength of her dragons, she became unmoored, unable to control the seething grief and rage within her. Had Rhaegal survived, some speculate, Daenerys might have maintained her grounding, perhaps avoiding the catastrophic devastation that marked the end of her conquest. In many ways, Rhaegal's demise reflected the central themes that run through the tapestry of Game of Thrones: power, loyalty, and legacy. His death underscored the fragile nature of even the mightiest creatures in Westeros, not felled by a fellow dragon or a mighty warrior, but by the cunning mechanical invention of men. Rhaegal's end serves as a stark reminder that no one, dragon or human, is invincible. His sudden and violent fall stands in sharp contrast to the long, storied life of older dragons like Balerion, who died of old age after leaving an indelible mark on Westerosi history. For Jon Snow, Rhaegal's death also marked the premature end of his brief but significant connection to his Targaryen heritage. While Jon's role in the dragon story was pivotal, it was fleeting. A brief flash of hope and power in a world where alliances shift like sand and power is always in flux. His bond with Rhaegal felt like a fragile spark, extinguished almost as soon as it appeared. Yet, despite the tragic end, Rhaegal's legacy is one of unwavering loyalty and strength. Though he did not cast as long a shadow as Balerion or Drogon, his impact on Westeros' story was profound. He carried Jon Snow into battle, fought fiercely against the Night King's forces, and stood as a steadfast ally to Daenerys until his dying breath. His death, while shocking, highlighted the immense costs of war and the harsh realities faced by even the most powerful. As we reflect on his journey, it becomes clear that Rhaegal was more than just a dragon. He was a symbol of the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability, soaring high above the world, only to be brought down by a single, well-aimed strike from below. His story mirrors the fate of many of Westeros' greatest figures, soaring on the wings of destiny, only to fall when least expected. Among Daenerys' dragons, Viserion stood out with his creamy white scales adorned with golden markings, his wings a striking blend of red, orange, and black, and piercing green eyes that made him a unique and commanding presence in the skies. Though never the largest or most aggressive of the dragons, Viserion was an essential part of Daenerys' forces, a potent symbol of her power and the deep bond she shared with her children. Yet his story would take the darkest turn of all, marking him as one of the most tragic figures in the world of dragons. Viserion's story took a tragic and haunting turn when he met his end during Daenerys Targaryen's desperate mission to save Jon Snow and his group beyond the Wall. It was a brutal moment. The Night King's spear pierced through the dragon, silencing the fiery beast mid-flight. For Daenerys, who had come to see her dragons as not just powerful creatures, but as deeply personal extensions of herself, this loss was shattering. Viserion was more than a dragon. He was a symbol of her strength, her hope, and her connection to a world steeped in ancient magic. Yet, his death was far from the conclusion of his tale. It marked the beginning of something far darker. In a moment that stunned both Daenerys and the audience, Viserion was resurrected by the Night King through a terrifying display of necromancy. His once cream-colored scales transformed into an eerie, ghostly white, and his fiery breath turned into a chilling blue flame, cold and deadly. As a white dragon, Viserion became the living embodiment of the Night King's sinister power, a terrifying creature capable of turning even the most majestic beings into instruments of destruction. This resurrection was a grim reminder of the Night King's unrelenting dark magic, showcasing his ability to corrupt and enslave life itself. No longer a loyal companion, Viserion's role shifted drastically. He became a weapon, wielded by the Night King to shatter centuries of protection for the realms of men. His most devastating act came when he unleashed his blue flames upon the Wall, a massive ancient barrier that had stood for thousands of years, guarding the Seven Kingdoms from the deadly forces lurking beyond the north. The destruction of the Wall, long prophesied and feared, was a turning point in the saga. It opened the floodgates for the Night King's army of the dead to pour into Westeros, spreading chaos, death, and despair across the land. Despite this horrific transformation, Viserion did not go unchallenged. During the Battle of Winterfell, he faced off against his former siblings, Drogon and Rhaegal. The sight of dragons locked in deadly combat was as heartbreaking as it was awe-inspiring, a powerful symbol of the devastating cost of this war between the living and the dead. Viserion, once a proud symbol of Daenerys' strength and her bond to ancient Valyrian magic, had become an agent of decay and death, a haunting reminder of how war can twist even the noblest of creatures. Viserion's final fate was sealed not in dragonfire, but in the shattering defeat of the Night King himself. When Arya Stark plunged her dagger into the Night King's heart, the magical tether that sustained Viserion's undead form was broken. The mighty dragon collapsed, lifeless once more. Though quieter than his dramatic resurrection, his death was a necessary part of ending the undead menace. It marked the conclusion of a tragic chapter for a creature that once soared freely over the skies of Westeros, now reduced to a pawn in a larger deadly game. A popular fan theory adds an intriguing layer to Viserion's tragic journey. Many speculate that his death and resurrection were foreshadowed early in the series through the symbolism of Daenerys' 3 dragon eggs. Viserion's creamy white scales were thought to hint at his eventual fate, tied to the icy, cold north. His transformation into a white dragon breathing cold blue fire is seen as an extension of the deep elemental conflict between fire and ice that lies at the heart of the story. Though this theory does not change the tragic end, it enriches the narrative, linking Viserion's fate to the broader themes of the series. Ultimately, Viserion's journey, from a beloved companion to a creature of the undead, reflects the larger battle between life and death that defines the world of Game of Thrones. His transformation is a powerful metaphor for how war corrupts and destroys even the most beautiful and powerful beings. Once a symbol of Daenerys' ambition and the future she sought to build, his fall into the Night King's grasp marked a dark and unforgettable moment in the history of dragons. The loss of Viserion was more than just a blow to Daenerys' forces. It was a deeply personal tragedy for the Mother of Dragons. Losing one of her children to the Night King underscored the immense personal cost of the war she waged, a cost measured not just in armies and territory, but in love and loss. Though the Night King's defeat brought a bittersweet end to Viserion's story, the scars left behind by his transformation lingered long after his final breath. His legacy is one of sorrow and caution, a reminder that even the mightiest creatures are not immune to the dark forces that haunt Westeros. Vhagar, another legendary dragon of House Targaryen, carved her name deep into the annals of history. Though she began life as the smallest of the 3 great dragons alongside Balerion and Meraxes, Vhagar's strength and longevity elevated her to become the largest living dragon by her final years. Her immense power and size made her a crucial player in both the Targaryen conquest of Westeros and the bloody civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. During the Targaryen conquest, Vhagar was ridden by Visenya Targaryen, one of Aegon the Conqueror's sister wives. Together, they forged the 7 kingdoms into a single realm, securing House Targaryen's dominance over Westeros. Vhagar's flames played a pivotal role in key battles, most famously at the Field of Fire, where she, alongside Balerion and Meraxes, unleashed devastating firestorms on the combined armies of the Reach and the Westerlands. This battle was one of the most defining moments of the conquest, proving beyond doubt that dragons were the ultimate weapon in Westeros. As centuries passed, Vhagar's role only grew in significance. While initially smaller than Balerion, by the time of the Dance of the Dragons, she had become the largest and most formidable dragon alive. During this brutal civil war between rival factions of House Targaryen, her rider was Prince Aemond Targaryen, one of the most fearsome combatants of the era. The bond between Aemond and Vhagar became legendary, with the dragon's deadly power and Aemond's ruthlessness shaping much of the conflict. One of the most significant moments of the dance came when Vhagar killed 2 other dragons, Arax and Lucerys Velaryon. In a fierce aerial battle over Storm's End, Arax, the smaller dragon, stood no chance against Vhagar's overwhelming might. This victory had wide-reaching consequences, fueling the flames of the Civil War and escalating it into a more brutal and bloody conflict. The death of Lucerys was a turning point that deepened the strife, pushing the Targaryen civil war into new depths of violence. Vhagar's final moments were some of the most dramatic in dragon history. In a climactic duel over the God's Eye Lake, she faced off against Caraxes, the dragon of Prince Daemon Targaryen. This was not just a battle between dragons, but a deadly confrontation between two of the most powerful Targaryens in history. The fight was fierce. With both dragons dealing devastating blows. Ultimately, both Vhagar and Caraxes perished together, plummeting into the waters below. Their riders, Prince Aemond and Prince Daemon, also died in this fatal clash, marking one of the most tragic and significant moments of the Dance of the Dragons. A fascinating fan theory surrounding Vhagar touches on fate and the Targaryen bloodline. Some speculate that her involvement in the dance was inevitable, a dragon bound by destiny to participate in the civil war that would fracture the Targaryen dynasty forever. This theory portrays Vhagar, like many dragons, as a symbol of both the unyielding power and the eventual downfall of House Targaryen. Her final battle with Caraxes and the death of her rider Aemond symbolized the self-destruction at the heart of the Targaryen legacy. Through their stories, both Viserion and Vhagar illustrate the grandeur and tragedy woven into the fabric of Westeros. Their lives, battles, and ultimate fates stand as echoes of the fiery and icy forces that shape this world, a vivid reminder that even creatures of immense power are vulnerable to the tides of fate and war. Dragons battling dragons, kin clashing against kin, a fiery conflict that raged with relentless fury, this internal strife heralded the slow and tragic decline of a once mighty house. The death of V, the last dragon born from the original conquest, marked the end of an era unlike any other. She was more than a creature of legend. She was a living testament to centuries of Targaryen rule over Westeros. Having witnessed and taken part in some of the most defining and brutal battles in the history of the realm, her demise was not just the loss of a dragon, but the symbolic fall of the Targaryen grip on these majestic beasts. V's passing was the turning point where dragons began to fade from the skies of Westeros, their once thunderous presence becoming mere whispers in the winds of memory. Yet, despite this fading, V's legacy endured, immortalized in tales of her sheer power and indomitable spirit. From the cataclysmic field of fire where dragonfire reshaped the fate of kingdoms, to her final deadly duel with Caraxes, V's presence on the battlefield was a force to be reckoned with. Her immense size and unparalleled strength made her a living weapon of war, capable of shifting the course of battles with a single breath of flame. Even in death, her name resonated through the annals of history, a reminder not only of the heights of Targaryen power, but also of the inevitable costs that civil war exacts. For the Targaryens, V was more than a weapon. She was the embodiment of their dominance, a symbol of their unique ability to command forces far beyond the reach of ordinary men. Her involvement in both the initial Targaryen conquest and the later devastating Dance of the Dragons tied her intimately to the rise and fall of their dynasty. While some remember Balerion as the mightiest of dragons, V's story is one of endurance, resilience, and lasting influence, a testament to the tragic grandeur of dragons in Westeros. Then there was Meraxes, a towering figure in the lore of Westeros, a dragon whose beauty was as breathtaking as her power. Her silver scales shimmered like moonlight, and her golden eyes held a regal, almost otherworldly glow that inspired awe in those who glimpsed her soaring across the sky. Meraxes was so immense that she could swallow a horse whole, a testament to her fearsome size. Alongside other dragons like Balerion and Vhagar, Meraxes played a pivotal role in the Targaryen conquest, helping to unite the fractured Seven Kingdoms under Aegon the Conqueror's iron rule. But it was Meraxes' tragic death that would ultimately define her legacy, a loss felt deeply within the heart of House Targaryen. She was ridden by Rhaenys Targaryen, sister wife to Aegon, and together they formed a formidable team, their bond strengthening their power on the battlefield. Meraxes' fiery breath left devastation in her wake, whether she was reducing enemy fortresses to smoldering ash or rooting entire armies with a single devastating pass. Her presence alone could change the tide of war. One of the most legendary moments involving Meraxes came during the infamous Field of Fire. There, facing the combined armies of the Reach and the Westerlands, Meraxus joined forces with Balerion and Vhagar to unleash a storm of dragonfire. Their flames devastated the enemy lines, ensuring a decisive Targaryen victory. This battle not only cemented the dragons' reputation as unstoppable war machines, but also carved an indelible mark on Westerosi history, a testament to the raw power wielded by the Targaryen dynasty. However, Meraxus' tale took a darker turn during the First Dornish War. The Targaryens, emboldened by their earlier conquests, turned their sights to Dorne, a land known for its harsh desert terrain and fiercely independent people. Rhaenys, mounted upon Meraxus, led the charge to bring Dorne under Aegon's dominion. Initially, their campaign showed promise, but the Dornish resistance proved far more formidable than anticipated. It was during a fierce assault on a Dornish stronghold that tragedy struck. Meraxus was fatally wounded by a scorpion bolt, a massive projectile engineered specifically to pierce dragon scales. The bolt struck her eye, penetrating her skull and killing her instantly. The impact of her fall was fatal to Rhaenys as well, ending the life of one of the Targaryens' most cherished warriors. This loss sent shockwaves through House Targaryen. The death of Meraxus was more than just a military setback. It was a devastating emotional blow that underscored the vulnerability of even the mightiest dragons. It shattered the illusion of invincibility that surrounded these great beasts and reminded the Targaryens that their dominance was never guaranteed. The tragedy deepened the divide between the Targaryens and the Dornish, signaling that Dorne would remain an elusive prize. Some scholars and theorists speculate that Meraxus' death was not merely a stroke of bad luck, but part of a carefully crafted plot by the Dornish, illustrating that beneath the grandeur and fire of dragons lay intricate webs of politics and strategy. Her death, therefore, symbolizes both the immense power of dragons and the ever-present dangers that came with their existence. Powerful but fallible, majestic but mortal. This intricate tapestry of dragonfire and bloodshed, of loyalty and betrayal, paints the dramatic rise and fall of the Targaryen dragons in Westeros, a story not just of war and conquest, but of legacy, by endurance and the tragic cost of power. By the Dornish, many have long speculated that they possessed a deep understanding of Merais's true power, so much so that they might have deliberately crafted the scorpion bolt to target her specifically. According to this theory, the Dornish were no mere bystanders in the war. From its very beginning, they studied dragons meticulously, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike a calculated blow. The fact that the bolt pierced Merais's eye, a small, vulnerable target, only adds fuel to these suspicions. It seems less a chance shot and more a carefully planned attack aimed with deadly precision. Whether or not this theory holds any water, it certainly weaves an additional layer of intrigue around Merais's death. It casts the Dornish not simply as brutal foes, but as cunning, resourceful strategists, capable of turning the tide through sharp intellect as much as sheer force. Merais's demise sent shockwaves throughout the Targaryen ranks. It marked a pivotal moment in the First Dornish War, forcing Prince Aegon to reconsider his entire campaign strategy against Dorne. Without the might of dragons like Royce and Merais, the Targaryen forces found themselves significantly weakened, and what might have been a swift conquest dragged into a protracted, exhausting conflict with no decisive victory. Ultimately, Aegon abandoned his attempts to conquer Dorne altogether, a testament to the fierce resilience of the Dornish people and the heavy price paid in losing such powerful allies. Despite her tragic end, Merais's legacy endures as one of the great dragons of Westeros. She played a vital role in the Targaryen conquest, her fiery breath instrumental in bringing vast regions under Targaryen rule. Her death, while a devastating loss, also underscored a crucial truth. Even creatures as mighty as dragons have limits, and power, no matter how overwhelming, is never absolute. Merais's story remains a powerful reminder that the Targaryens' dominance was never guaranteed. It showed that even the most formidable forces could be brought low by strategy, persistence, and a bit of luck. Her name still evokes a mix of majesty and sorrow. Her silver scales and golden eyes, once symbols of Targaryen supremacy, now stand as a haunting emblem of vulnerability and loss. Though her reign in the skies was cut cruelly short, her impact on Westeros' history is undeniable. Whether remembered for her devastating presence on the battlefield or for the heartbreaking circumstances of her death in Dorne, Murray's story lingers in the minds of historians and dragon enthusiasts alike. Turning now to Caraxes, known to many as the Bloodworm, his fearsome reputation was unmatched. His blood-red scales and serpentine, elongated body perfectly mirrored his fierce and violent nature. Caraxes was more than just a war machine. He was a living symbol of House Targaryen's ruthless ambition and raw power. Especially in the hands of his infamous rider, Daemon Targaryen, Caraxes' legacy was one of fiery destruction and relentless conquest. His story is inextricably tied to one of the bloodiest conflicts Westeros has ever known, the Dance of the Dragons. Before Daemon Targaryen mounted him, Caraxes was ridden by Prince Aemon Targaryen, who played a key role in building the dragon's fearsome reputation. Even early on, Caraxes was known for his aggressive temperament and battlefield prowess. Aemon and Caraxes fought side by side, their bond forging the dragon's status as one of the deadliest beasts in the Targaryen stables. Yet it was his later partnership with Daemon that elevated Caraxes to legendary status. Daemon Targaryen, infamous for his ambition and brutality, chose Caraxes as his mount. Together, they formed one of the most terrifying duos in Westerosi history. The Bloodworm's long, sinuous body and ferocious temperament matched perfectly with Daemon's own unpredictable, dangerous nature. Daemon's ruthless pursuit of power was echoed in Caraxes' fiery breath and aggressive combat style. Whether unleashing flames upon enemies or engaging in fierce aerial battles, Caraxes embodied the raw fury and unyielding will of his rider. During the Dance of the Dragons, a brutal civil war that tore the Targaryen dynasty apart, Caraxes was at the heart of the chaos. Daemon used him to devastate enemy forces and capture key strongholds. With every battle, Caraxes' reputation grew more fearsome, his fiery breath laying waste to armies, cities, and castles alike. His terrifying presence in the sky was often a harbinger of doom for those below. The climax of Caraxes' story came during the infamous duel above the God's Eye, a confrontation that would become legendary. Here, Caraxes faced off against Vhagar, the largest and most powerful dragon of the era. Chronicled by Prince Aemon Targaryen, this battle between two colossal dragons was not just a contest of raw strength, but a reflection of the bitter rivalries between their riders. Daemon the Bold clashed with Aemon with a ferocity that matched their dragon's fiery wrath. Though smaller than Vhagar, Caraxes fought with unmatched tenacity. The two dragons locked in a brutal struggle, biting and clawing at each other as they plummeted toward the waters of the God's Eye. In the final, tragic moment, both dragons met their end. Caraxes inflicted mortal wounds on Vhagar, but the injuries he suffered were too great to survive. Their massive bodies crashed into the lake below, bringing an explosive end to their fierce combat. The deaths of Caraxes and Vhagar were not just the loss of two dragons, they marked the symbolic end of a brutal chapter in Targaryen history. Daemon and Aemon, locked in a bitter vendetta of their own, perished alongside their mounts, sealing one of the most tragic and legendary moments of the Civil War. Caraxes' death signified more than the fall of a dragon, it was the closing of an era. His fierce loyalty to Daemon, his unmatched ferocity in battle, and the sheer force of his presence made Caraxes one of the most unforgettable dragons in the annals of Westerosi history. His legacy, forged in fire and blood, continues to haunt the stories told of the Dance of the Dragons, an enduring reminder of the dangers, ambitions, and tragedies that shaped the Targaryen dynasty forever. The battle that unfolded above the fabled God's Eye was no ordinary clash. It was a cataclysmic moment etched into the annals of dragonkind, where two of the most legendary dragons to ever roam the skies met their fiery end. This confrontation was more than a mere fight. It was a collision of raw ambition, deep-seated vengeance, and the weighty legacy carried by these ancient, mighty beasts. Known as one of the most dramatic and heart-wrenching episodes in the turbulent saga known as the Dance of the Dragons, this duel forever altered the course of history. Among scholars and enthusiasts of dragon lore, there exists a compelling theory surrounding Caraxes, the formidable dragon ridden by Daemon Targaryen. This theory delves into the mysterious and almost supernatural connection that seemed to bind rider and beast beyond the simple bond of control. Some speculate that the fierce, almost bloodthirsty aggression displayed by Caraxes was not purely his own, but was profoundly influenced by Daemon's relentless ambition and darker nature. It is suggested that Caraxes was more than just a reflection of his rider's personality. He was shaped in part by the very spirit that drove Daemon, a spirit marked by ruthlessness and an unyielding will to dominate. This theory offers a potential explanation for why Caraxes, though smaller in size compared to his opponent Vhagar, was able to match her in raw ferocity during their final devastating encounter. It implies that their fight was not just a battle of physical might, but also a battle of intertwined souls, where the temperament of dragon and rider fused into a single fearsome force. Whether this interpretation holds true or not, it serves to highlight the deeply personal and almost mystical bond that exists between dragons and their riders, a bond that transcends mere mastery and control, touching the very essence of shared temperament and mutual willpower. Caraxes' legacy is one steeped in both awe and terror. His blood-red scales, serpentine form, and brutal nature made him a living embodiment of the violence and ambition that defined the Targaryen dynasty at its most volatile. Known to many as the Bloodworm, Caraxes was a dragon who fought fiercely in countless battles, never relenting and never surrendering his fiery spirit until his very last breath. The death of Caraxes, alongside that of his rider Daemon, marked not only the tragic end of two formidable beings, but also signaled the closing of a fierce chapter in Westerosi history, a chapter filled with fire, blood, and unrelenting ambition. Even long after the flames of the Dance of the Dragons have died down, Caraxes' name continues to inspire both fear and reverence across the lands. On the other side of this historic conflict stood Vhagar, known as the Red Queen, a dragon whose presence was nothing short of elemental fury. Far from being a mere asset in the Targaryen arsenal, Vhagar was a force of nature in her own right. Her blazing scarlet scales shimmered like molten metal under the sun, and her bright copper horns crowned her head like a fiery halo. She cut a striking and unforgettable figure, a living streak of red fire streaking across the skies of Westeros, fast, fierce, and utterly fearless. Vhagar was more than a dragon. She was a predator, perfectly built for war and destruction. And in the chaos of the Dance of the Dragons, she stood out as a weapon of unparalleled devastation. Vhagar was ridden by Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, often called the Queen Who Never Was, a woman whose spirit and resolve matched the ferocity of her dragon. Their bond went far beyond that of rider and beast. It was a powerful union forged in purpose and shared strength. Together, Rhaenys and Vhagar dominated the battlefield with a confidence born from the understanding that they were among the deadliest forces alive. Vhagar, swift as a raging storm and just as destructive, was a perfect extension of Rhaenys' fierce determination and warrior's heart. Unlike dragons who hung back to survey the fight from afar, Vhagar was a frontline terror, tearing through enemy ranks with an unstoppable force. In this historic aerial duel above the tranquil surface of the God's Eye Lake, the fury of ambition, legacy, and vengeance converged. Two dragons, one crimson and fierce, the other serpentine and ruthless, clashed with such overwhelming power that their deaths echoed through time. This final battle not only shaped the fate of their riders, but left an indelible mark on the history of Westeros, forever symbolizing the terrifying power and tragic beauty of dragons locked in mortal combat. When it came to the blood-soaked skies during the fierce and brutal conflict known as the Dance of the Dragons, she plunged headfirst into the chaos with relentless fury. Flames roared from her jaws, casting a blazing inferno that lit up the darkened heavens, while her wings sliced through the air like sharpened blades, cutting with deadly precision. Her speed was her greatest weapon. Many believed no dragon could outfly her, her strikes as exact and lethal as a master swordsman's thrust. Time and time again, in battle after battle, she stood at the very heart of the storm, a fiery comet streaking across the sky, laying waste to every opponent who dared stand in her path. But it was her most famous and tragic moment that cemented her legacy forever, during the fateful battle at Rook's Rest. This confrontation would become etched in history as one of the most legendary clashes of the Dance of the Dragons. Here, she faced not just a single adversary, but two of the deadliest dragons ever known in Westeros, Sunfire, the golden dragon ridden by King Aegon II, and Vhagar, the ancient, battle-hardened beast commanded by Prince Aemon Targaryen. The odds were brutally stacked against her, yet retreat was never a choice. With the fierce dragon beneath her, she charged forward, fueled by a reckless courage that would become legend. The skies over Rook's Rest burned bright with the fiery clash of titans as the Red Queen met her enemies head-on. Though outnumbered and outmatched, she fought with a ferocity so intense that those watching from below could barely tear their eyes away. Her blazing breath collided with Sunfire's golden flames, while Vhagar's immense power threatened to crush her at every turn. The air vibrated with the deafening roars of dragons, the scent of scorched earth thick and choking. Her speed was unmatched, faster than any dragon on the battlefield, yet even that incredible agility wasn't enough against two colossal beasts working in tandem. Still, she fought as no dragon before had fought, diving, weaving, and slipping through the air with astonishing grace, striking again and again with devastating precision. Each blow she landed sent shockwaves through her foes, but the combined might of Sunfire and Vhagar was overwhelming. Eventually, sheer force overcame even her extraordinary skill and valor. She fell, her body crashing to the earth in a blazing inferno of fire and blood, a brutal spectacle seared into the memories of all who witnessed it. Her rider, Rhaena, fearless and bound by fire and fate, perished alongside her. Their deaths were not just losses for their cause, but blows that shattered the very heart of the Targaryen civil war. The Red Queen was more than a weapon. She was a symbol of defiance, a reminder that dragons were not merely tools of war, but rulers of the skies. Yet even the mightiest dragons could fall. Among historians and dragon enthusiasts, there is a whispered theory that her downfall was not simply because she was outnumbered. Some believe that Rhaena's confidence in the dragon's unparalleled speed and agility led her to underestimate the raw power of her enemies. This critical misjudgment may have doomed her to confront Sunfire and Vhagar simultaneously, a courageous but fatal decision. Whether or not this theory holds, it adds depth to the tale of a dragon that, even in defeat, fought with unyielding spirit until her very last breath. Her death marked a turning point in the war, but her legacy, the ferocity, the indomitable will to fight, lived on. She was a dragon of unmatched speed and power, a creature that forced even her enemies to think twice before facing her in the sky. The fall of the Red Queen at Rook's Rest was more than a battle lost. It was a symbol of how far the Targaryens were willing to go, the sacrifices they were willing to make in their brutal civil war. She lived and died on her own terms, fast, fierce, and unrelenting, remaining one of the most iconic dragons in Westeros. Her scarlet form, burning bright in memory, became a lasting emblem of the Dance of the Dragons, her legacy a blazing testament to the raw, untamable power that once ruled the skies. Meanwhile, another name was whispered across Westeros with equal parts reverence and fear: Vermithor, the Bronze Fury. His bronze scales shimmered like molten metal in the sunlight, a living monument to the might and majesty of House Targaryen. Towering among the largest dragons to take wing during the Dance of the Dragons, Vermithor was born for battle, yet much of his life was spent in the peace ushered in by King Jaehaerys I, the longest reigning Targaryen monarch. His presence alone was a symbol of power, flying across the skies not as a weapon of war, but as a reminder to the lords of Westeros that peace was guarded by the silent but ever-watchful force of dragons. During those quiet years, Vermithor's bond with King Jaehaerys was not forged in fire and bloodshed, but in moments of calm rulership. Together they soared over the realm, embodying stability and strength. Though Vermithor's flames remained largely unused during this era of peace and prosperity, beneath his composed exterior lurked the spirit of a beast who still remembered the fiery legacy of Valyria, the taste of battle, the thrill of dominance, and the raw, unyielding power of dragons in their prime. When the Dance of the Dragons erupted into a full-blown civil war between the factions loyal to King Aegon II and Queen Rhaenyra, Vermithor found himself riderless, but far from powerless. Though dormant, the Bronze Fury was a sleeping giant, waiting for the call to rise again and unleash devastation upon the skies. The years of peace had softened his edges, but could not erase the beast within, the ancient fire that surged through his veins, ready to be unleashed when Westeros needed him most. This is the story of dragons who soared with unmatched speed and ferocity, creatures bound by flame and blood, whose battles shaped the fate of kingdoms and echoed through history. Their flames burned bright, their legacies eternal, reminding us all that even the mightiest can fall. Yet the spirit of dragons endures, wild and untamed, forever ruling the skies. His return to the battlefield was nothing short of a game changer, an event that sent ripples through the war-torn lands of Westeros. Despite having lost his longtime rider in King Jaehaerys, Vermithor, the legendary bronze dragon, was too powerful, too magnificent a force to remain idle during the escalating chaos. As the fires of the Targaryen civil war, known as the Dance of the Dragons, consumed the realm, Vermithor was eventually summoned back into the fray. His arrival was a towering reminder of the raw, uncontrollable power dragons represented, living embodiments of devastation and majesty rolled into one colossal beast. What set Vermithor apart was not just his immense size or formidable strength, but his very presence, a palpable aura that commanded fear and awe in equal measure. Years had passed since he last soared through the skies in battle, and yet when he returned, it was like witnessing a storm rolling over the horizon, slow, methodical, and utterly devastating. Though he fought without the steady hand of an experienced rider guiding him, Vermithor's ferocity in the air and his destructive breath of fire remained unmatched. No longer a mere symbol of peace or a passive guardian of the realm, he had been transformed into a weapon of war once more, a force unleashed to settle the bitter scores tearing House Targaryen apart. The Bronze Fury's most significant and final clash unfolded during the Second Battle of Tumbleton, one of the bloodiest, most chaotic confrontations in the entire Dance of the Dragons. This was far from a simple skirmish. It was an all-out dragon battle, a cataclysmic clash of titans that saw some of the most powerful dragons in Westeros meet their fateful end. Vermithor was there, fighting not just for the Targaryens, but for the very legacy of dragons themselves. The sky became a swirling tempest of fire, claws, and wings as dragons tore into each other with savage abandon. Despite his age and the weight of countless years, Vermithor fought with brutal ferocity, belying the years of peace he had once known. But even the mightiest of dragons are not invincible. After delivering devastating blows to multiple enemies, Vermithor met his end in that very battle. Facing down several dragons at once, he fought valiantly, but the combined might of his foes overwhelmed him. His death was a spectacle of destruction, like a force of nature brought low. Once a symbol of peaceful reign under King Jaehaerys, Vermithor fell amid a storm of fire and blood. His massive body crashed upon the battlefield, carrying with it the weight of a long and storied history. Among the many theories surrounding Vermithor's participation in the Dance of the Dragons, one stands out compellingly: that he was not simply a passive participant, dragged into war by circumstance. Some speculate that his return to battle, despite being riderless for much of the conflict, was a testament to the profound and innate bond between dragons and the Targaryen bloodline. According to this theory, Vermithor was drawn not by any rider's command, but by the war itself, by the internal struggle tearing apart the family to which he was bound. His participation without an experienced rider can be seen as an act of loyalty, not to a single individual, but to House Targaryen as a whole, fighting for the bloodline that had once brought him into the world. Whether this theory holds true or not, it underscores the deep and mystical connection between dragons and their riders, a bond that endures even in times of chaos, loss, and betrayal. Vermithor's death serves as a stark reminder that no matter how ancient or powerful, war remains the great equalizer. The Bronze Fury, once a peaceful symbol of King Jaehaerys' reign, had become a casualty in a war that was tearing his house apart. Yet, in his final moments, Vermithor did not go quietly. He fought with every ounce of fury left in his vast, fiery heart, leaving a mark on the battlefield that would ensure his name was remembered long after the flames of the Dance of the Dragons had been extinguished. For House Targaryen, Vermithor represented both the heights of their power and the depths of their tragedy. He was a dragon who had lived through peace, but died in war, a beast that once soared as a symbol of unity, only to fall as a victim of division. His legacy, like the gleaming bronze scales that covered his massive frame, shone with the weight of history. Vermithor's story is one of a dragon forged for battle who knew the rare grace of peace, and when war returned, unleashed a fury that would echo through time. The Bronze Fury met his end in a blaze of glory, his massive form collapsing into the earth during the final throes of battle. Yet his name, legacy, and impact on the history of Westeros remain indestructible, just like the fire that once roared in his veins. Vermithor may have died in the Dance of the Dragons, but his memory soars on, a testament to the power and tragedy that defines the dragons of House Targaryen. Dreamfire, in stark contrast to the colossal dragons that shaped Westeros with sheer brute force, was a creature of elegance and grace. Her light blue scales shimmered like a summer sky, and delicate silver markings traced her sinuous body, making her a breathtaking vision against the backdrop of the clouds. Unlike the larger, more intimidating dragons such as Balerion or Vhagar, Dreamfire was built for agility and finesse, soaring through the skies with a beauty and precision that made her a striking figure in Targaryen history. Though she may not have cast the largest shadow, Dreamfire's legacy stretches far beyond her size or battlefield prowess. Her story is deeply intertwined with the rise and fall of House Targaryen itself. Dreamfire first bonded with Princess Rhaena Targaryen, a figure as significant as the dragon she rode. Together, they became a symbol of Targaryen strength, even amid times of great upheaval and uncertainty. The sight of Dreamfire's light blue wings gliding over Dragonstone and beyond was a familiar and inspiring one, a reminder of the enduring power of the Dragon Lords. Yet, Dreamfire's story took a deeper and more poignant turn when she found a new rider, Helaena Targaryen, the sister wife of Aegon II. The two shared a quiet yet profound bond during one of the most turbulent eras in Targaryen history, the Dance of the Dragons. Unlike dragons known for leading armies into battle or reducing cities to ash, Dreamfire was never a creature of brute strength or overwhelming destruction. Her role in the Civil War was quieter, more subdued, but no less vital. Helaena endured tremendous suffering during the Dance of the Dragons. Her mental state unraveled under the weight of political intrigue, shifting alliances, and personal loss. In the midst of this chaos, Dreamfire became a constant, a living symbol of a past slipping further and further away with each passing day. Yet, even the majestic presence of Dreamfire could not shield Helaena from the dark fate that awaited her. Grief-stricken and broken by the horrors of war, Helaena ultimately took her own life, leaving Dreamfire riderless once more, a silent witness to the devastating toll that the Targaryen Civil War exacted on both dragons and their riders alike. Dreamfire's story is unlike the thunderous clashes and blazing battles often told in the histories of dragons. Instead, her tale carries a quiet yet profound significance, one grounded not in sheer destruction, but in the enduring legacy she helped forge. What makes Dreamfire especially fascinating is her subtle but pivotal role in the survival and continuation of the dragon bloodline, a legacy that reverberates far beyond the chaos of war. Throughout her long life, it is believed that Dreamfire laid numerous eggs, though the exact number remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. Many scholars and fans alike have theorized that these eggs may have been crucial in preserving the future of House Targaryen during some of the darkest and most turbulent times in Westeros. Whispers echo through history, suggesting that from these eggs hatched some of the last dragons known to the realm. Dragons that would come to be associated with Daenerys Targaryen centuries later, when she famously rekindled the flames of her ancestors by bringing dragons back into the world. Though this theory remains unconfirmed by definitive evidence, it adds a captivating layer of mystique to Dreamfire's story. The idea that her offspring might have sparked the very resurgence of dragons in Westeros links her to one of the most transformative events in the continent's history. It hints that despite Dreamfire not taking part in the brutal battles that defined the Targaryen Civil War, her influence endured silently through her progeny, shaping the destiny of an entire dynasty. If this theory holds truth, it means that the blood of Dreamfire coursed through the veins of Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, the legendary dragons who would again shake the foundations of Westeros with their fiery power. These dragons, symbolic of both destruction and hope, may owe their existence to Dreamfire's legacy, bridging the past with the future in a continuum of dragonfire and blood. Yet even without this tantalizing link, Dreamfire's legacy remains deeply woven into the survival of House Targaryen during an era riddled with loss, betrayal, and civil war. She embodies the quieter strength of the Targaryen family, the resilience of a lineage whose fate was inexorably tied to the dragons soaring above them. Dreamfire's elegant flights across the skies, her profound bond with her riders, reflected a form of power measured not in violent conquest, but in the steady continuation of her family's bloodline. There is something almost poetic in Dreamfire's story. She was a witness to the slow unraveling of her house, from the peaceful reigns of earlier Targaryen kings to the devastating civil war that threatened to tear them apart forever. Her light may not have burned with the same fury as her larger, more battle-scarred kin, but in her grace and quiet endurance, she held a significance all her own. Dreamfire helped preserve the future of her house, ensuring that dragons would continue to play a pivotal role in shaping the fate of Westeros long after her time had passed. For many, Dreamfire's legacy is inseparable from her connection to Helena, her rider and companion. Their bond was a symbol of both beauty and tragedy, a reminder of the glory days of House Targaryen when dragons were revered as icons of power and prestige. Yet their story also mirrors the sorrow of the Dance of the Dragons, the brutal civil war that shattered the Targaryen family beyond repair. Helena's death and the role Dreamfire played in her life mark a somber chapter in the history of dragons, filled with loss and heartache. In the end, Dreamfire may not have been the dragon that led armies into battle or raised entire cities to ash, but she was undeniably a dragon of legacy, an emblem of continuity in a world fractured by war. Whether remembered for her graceful flight, her possible role in hatching the dragons of the future, or her poignant bond with Helena, Dreamfire's story lingers in the lore of Westeros as a testament to the lasting impact even the most graceful dragons can leave behind. In a realm often dominated by tales of colossal dragons and overwhelming power, Seasmoke stands apart as a reminder that agility and quick wit can be just as formidable. Smaller and younger than many of the colossal beasts who ruled the skies during the Dance of the Dragons, Seasmoke's silver-gray scales shimmered like the morning mist rising off the ocean, perfectly matching the name he bore. Though he lacked the sheer bulk of dragons like Balerion the Black Dread, his speed and nimbleness made him an invaluable force. Unlike dragons born into fame and legend, Seasmoke's story is one of quiet but vital contribution. Bonded with Lord Valon, a key figure in the Targaryen-Valon alliance, Seasmoke became a symbol of Valon's influence and power during the War for the Stepstones, a conflict that dramatically shaped Westeros's political and military landscape at the time. Seasmoke's ability to weave swiftly through the air, dodging and darting past larger, slower dragons, gave him a unique tactical advantage. He was not the dragon sent to unleash devastating firepower on a fortress or sweep entire armies from the field in a single fiery breath. Instead, Seasmoke was the dragon summoned when precision, speed, and daring tactics were essential. Lord Valon, a master of strategy, depended heavily on Seasmoke's agility and quick reflexes during the war. Together, they secured pivotal victories, none more dramatic than the Siege of Bloodstone. When Daemon Targaryen's forces were trapped and the battle teetered on the edge of defeat, it was Seasmoke who turned the tide. His swift and decisive attacks allowed him to break the siege, freeing Daemon and transforming a near disaster into a crucial strategic win. It was this sharpness and tactical precision that made Seasmoke a dragon unlike any other, a scalpel in the chaos of war rather than a blunt hammer. While many dragons are celebrated for their overwhelming size and strength, Seasmoke's story is one of finesse and agility. His flight was more akin to a falcon, swift and graceful, rather than the lumbering power of the larger dragons. During battle, his silver-gray form became nearly impossible to track, disappearing seamlessly into clouds or ocean mists, striking before his enemies even realized he was there. Seasmoke's role in the War for the Stepstones exemplifies how dragons were not mere beasts of brute force, but creatures of strategy, each possessing unique qualities that made them invaluable in the chaos of conflict. After Lord Valon faked his own death and vanished into exile, Seasmoke's story quieted. Left without a rider, he returned to Driftmark, becoming one of the few dragons not claimed during the Dance of the Dragons. living out his days away from the bloody battles that marked his earlier years. There is a certain haunting beauty in the image of Sea Smoke, a dragon whose once fierce vitality in the heat of battle has now softened into a quiet, almost melancholic presence. Picture him circling above the misty waves off the coast of Driftmark, a lone figure in the vast sky. Though without a rider, Sea Smoke's presence remained undeniable, silent, patient, ever watchful, as if suspended in time, waiting for the next chapter of his extraordinary story to be told. One of the most enduring theories surrounding Sea Smoke is deeply tied to his riderless state during the tumultuous era known as the Dance of the Dragons. Many believe that the bond between Sea Smoke and his rider, Lord Lore, was so profound that the dragon could not bring himself to accept another rider after Lore mysteriously vanished. This was a time when dragons were often seen as mere instruments of war, tools to be wielded in the savage conflicts tearing Westeros apart. Yet Sea Smoke's refusal to bond with anyone else hints at something far more complex, a testament to a dragon's intelligence, loyalty, and emotional depth. Some historians and dragon lore scholars suggest that Sea Smoke's steadfast reluctance to form a new bond reflected an inner loyalty so fierce it transcended the brutal world of war. It's said that Lore had faked his own death to escape the violence that surrounded them, and in response, Sea Smoke remained faithful to the memory of his vanished rider. Whether fact or legend, this idea adds a rich layer of complexity to Sea Smoke's story. It challenges the notion that dragons are mere beasts, and instead suggests they possess agency, memory, and a deep connection to the humans who dare to ride them. Although Sea Smoke's time in the spotlight was shorter than many of his famed dragon counterparts, his impact on Westeros' history was no less significant. Small and youthful compared to the mighty beasts dominating battlefields, Sea Smoke defied expectations. He was every bit as important as those colossal dragons whose fiery roars echoed across the skies. Through his agility and loyalty, Sea Smoke saved lives and carved his own niche in the annals of war, becoming a symbol not of overwhelming brute strength, but of precision and survival. In a world where raw power often overshadowed cunning, Sea Smoke stood out as a unique figure. While others blazed paths of destruction, he moved through the chaos with the calculated grace of a seasoned tactician. His shimmering silver-gray scales, almost ghost-like against the backdrop of war, made him a legend, not through sheer force, but through mastery of the art of battle. Even after his rider disappeared and his direct role in the conflict faded, Sea Smoke remained the dragon of sea and sky, built for speed, strategy, and endurance. Though his name may not inspire the same awe as giants like Balerion or Vhagar, Sea Smoke's legacy remains profound. In a world where might often dictated right, he proved that sometimes it is the swift, the agile, and the clever who shape the course of history. He was the silent hunter of the skies, a creature whose story reminds us that even the smallest beings can leave the largest marks upon the world. Quicksilver, with his ethereal silver-white scales shimmering like sunlight dancing on water, was another dragon celebrated for beauty and agility. Though smaller than many of his Targaryen kin, Quicksilver was a formidable creature, defined by his swift and decisive strikes. While many dragons relied on overwhelming power and fiery destruction, Quicksilver embodied elegance and precision. He moved through the sky like a master of flight, graceful and lethal, able to unleash his fiery breath with pinpoint accuracy when provoked. Quicksilver was, in many ways, a reflection of the Targaryen lineage itself, dazzling, majestic, and immensely powerful. His story is forever entwined with the history of House Targaryen, representing both their strength and the tragic costs of ambition. Initially bonded with King Aenys I, the first Targaryen monarch, Quicksilver symbolized a lighter, more peaceful chapter in Targaryen rule. During Aenys' relatively calm reign, Quicksilver was less often called into battle, serving more as a majestic reminder of Targaryen might. His silvery scales gleamed over the skies of Westeros, a constant symbol of the power the Targaryens held, power that could erupt at any moment. However, it was under Quicksilver's second rider, Prince Aegon II, that the dragon's place in history would be truly defined. As the son of King Aenys, Aegon inherited his father's bond with Quicksilver, but entered a far more turbulent and violent reign. Aegon II found himself caught in a ruthless struggle for the throne against his uncle, Prince Maegor the Cruel. Maegor, riding the infamous Balerion, also known as the Black Dread, was a force unlike any the Targaryens had ever faced before. Unstoppable, brutal, and willing to scorch everything in his path to secure power, Maegor posed a terrifying threat to the kingdom. The clash between Quicksilver and Balerion was more than just a battle of dragons. It was a symbol of the bitter war for control over Westeros. Quicksilver, with his elegance and deadly precision, stood as a testament to the hope and resilience of the Targaryen line, even as the kingdom teetered on the edge of chaos. His story is a reminder that beneath the flames and fury of dragons lies a complex web of loyalty, ambition, and the desperate struggle for survival in a world where power is everything. Quicksilver's most unforgettable and final chapter unfolded beneath the looming presence of the God's Eye, in what would become one of the most epic and harrowing dragon battles ever recorded in the annals of Westeros. It was a clash that echoed through history, a fierce duel high above the waters where legends were born and lost. Mounted upon Quicksilver, Prince Aegon soared into the heart of the conflict, facing not just any adversaries, but the fearsome Maegor and the dread Balerion, monsters whose names alone struck terror into the bravest of hearts. Balerion was a creature unlike any other, a dragon whose size and power defied belief. His immense, glowing eyes seemed to pierce through the very soul of those who dared meet his gaze. Centuries of battle-hardened experience made him the most feared dragon to have ever taken flight, his massive black wings casting vast shadows that could blot out entire cities. When he unleashed his fiery breath, castles crumbled in mere moments, reduced to smoldering ruins before the eyes of horrified onlookers. Quicksilver, though smaller and less imposing, was by no means a creature to be underestimated. His slender frame and shimmering silver scales belied a terrifying agility and speed that could outmaneuver even the most fearsome foes. With grace that rivaled the winds themselves, he darted and weaved through the turbulent sky, his every movement a blur of precision and finesse. Balerin's power was raw and overwhelming. Quicksilver's strength lay in his swiftness and cunning. As the two dragons met above the God's Eye, the very air crackled with an intensity born of fire and fury. Their roars shook the heavens and the earth alike, a symphony of rage and desperation that echoed across the kingdom. It was not merely a battle of strength, but a confrontation of two starkly different Targaryen ideals, youthful speed and agility against ancient, relentless force. Yet, despite Quicksilver's dazzling maneuvers and fierce determination, Balerin's immense size and brutal power proved too great. In a devastating moment etched forever into history, Balerin's massive jaws clamped down on Quicksilver with unyielding force. With a terrifying finality, one of Quicksilver's wings was torn clean off. The crippled dragon, wounded and unable to maintain flight, plummeted toward the dark waters below. Clinging desperately to the faltering beast was Prince Aegon, his grip a testament to their bond. Together, they crashed into the depths of the God's Eye, swallowed by the abyss, their bodies never seen again. Quicksilver's death marked more than just the loss of a dragon. It symbolized the collapse of a rebellion and the shattering of a dream. Prince Aegon, like many Targaryens before and after, had placed his faith in the power of dragons to claim the Iron Throne. Yet, facing the monstrous Balerion, even a dragon as swift and graceful as Quicksilver was no match. This fateful battle at the God's Eye became a defining moment in Targaryen history, a brutal reminder of the costs that come with wielding such devastating power. A fascinating theory lingers around the story of Quicksilver's final fight. Some speculate that the bond between Aegon and Quicksilver may have been weaker than that of other Targaryen dragon rider pairs. Considering Aegon's relatively peaceful upbringing prior to the civil war with Maegor, it is suggested that Quicksilver might have been less prepared for the horrors of full-scale dragon warfare than battle-hardened dragons like Balerion. Though Quicksilver's agility could rival any foe, the lack of experience and hardened combat skill may have sealed his tragic fate. This theory, while speculative, adds a rich layer to the tale of the Targaryens, illustrating that even dragons and their riders can be overcome by the inexorable currents of history. Quicksilver's defeat not only signaled the end of Aegon's rebellion, but also solidified Maegor's iron grip on the throne, reinforcing his reign as the most feared Targaryen ruler of the era. With Quicksilver's bones resting in the depths of the God's Eye and Aegon lost, the once radiant symbol of Targaryen strength, the dragon with shimmering silver-white scales, vanished from the skies. In its place arose a darker legacy, a shadow cast over the realm. Yet despite this tragic end, Quicksilver remains a figure of legend, etched forever in the chronicles of dragon lore. His shimmering beauty, unmatched speed, and fierce loyalty to his rider distinguished him as one of the most unique dragons to ever fly under the Targaryen banner. Even in death, his story serves as a powerful reminder. In the world of Westeros, power, whether human or draconic, demands a heavy toll. Though Quicksilver fell to Balerin's might, the light once dancing across his silver scales endures still, shining through the ages. In stark contrast to the fierce chaos embodied by Quicksilver, Silverwing represented a different, more serene form of power. She was not a dragon built for destruction or bloodshed, but the very embodiment of elegance and calm. With shimmering silver scales that caught and reflected light like molten metal and wings that spread wide like polished steel, Silverwing possessed a quiet majesty that commanded awe rather than fear. Unlike many dragons known for their battle prowess, Silverwing's strength lay in her embodiment of peace and stability. She was a symbol of a realm united and prosperous, a realm ruled not by terror, but through diplomacy and reform. Under the long and steady reign of King Jaehaerys I, and chronicled by Queen Alicent Targaryen, Silverwing became part of a legacy crafted not on the battlefield, but through alliances, loyalty, and goodwill. Queen Alicent rode Silverwing not into war, but across the Seven Kingdoms, binding Westeros together through journeys that fostered unity and trust. Silverwing's effortless glide across the skies became a living emblem of a golden age, a time when the threat of dragonfire seemed distant and prosperity spread from King's Landing to the most remote corners of the realm. One of the most celebrated moments in Silverwing's storied life occurred during Queen Alicent's journey to the Wall, at the very edge of the known world. Here, Silverwing's mysterious connection to the ancient forces of the North began to take shape. Despite Alicent's urging, Silverwing refused to cross beyond the wall. Each attempt to nudge her toward the icy wilderness was met with resistance. The dragon would rear back, shying away from the bitter cold winds and the unknown dangers lurking in the frozen wasteland. This refusal was no mere stubbornness. It spoke to something deeper, something unseen, seen, and ancient. Over the centuries, tales have flourished attempting to explain Silverwing's reluctance to venture north. Some say she sensed the ancient magic that lingered beyond the wall, the same dark power that would one day bring forth the Night King and his army of the dead. Others believe it was a primal instinct, a deep-seated recognition of the ancient forces lingering in that frozen land, remnants of powers long forgotten. Silverwing's refusal to fly beyond the wall has become far more than a curious story. It stands as a symbol of the mysteries even dragons cannot unravel. Unlike her kin, remembered for their roles in violent conflicts, Silverwing's legacy is tied to a profound sensitivity to the unseen forces shaping the world. Her story hints that even beings of immense power have limits, a knowing of when to hold back and when to respect the unknown. After Queen Alicent's passing, Silverwing's life grew quieter. She returned to Dragonstone, spending her remaining years alone and riderless, a rare fate for a dragon of her stature, but one that underscores the unique bond she shared with Alicent. Without her queen, Silverwing had no desire to find a new rider, nor to engage in the deadly dance of dragons that would later tear Westeros apart. Instead, she remained a silent guardian of Dragonstone, a living relic of a gentler era. Though she never participated in the violent struggles that defined so many other dragons' lives, Silverwing's legacy endures through her grace, majestic presence, and unwavering loyalty to Queen Alicent. She soared above the bloodshed, a creature who, even in a world aflame with dragonfire, embodied the possibility that power could be wielded with dignity and restraint. While her name may not be synonymous with destruction, Silverwing's story is no less significant. She represented a realm where strength was measured not in battles won, but in peace maintained. The very essence of House Targaryen found its finest embodiment in a force that commanded respect without the need to lay waste to entire cities. This was a power that did not rely on fire and destruction to assert dominance, yet still held the attention and awe of all who beheld it. In an era marked by relative peace, one figure stood apart, a mysterious presence whose legacy was as enduring as the silver wings that once graced the skies of Westeros. The enigma surrounding her, especially her steadfast refusal to cross the wall, has kept her legend alive, whispered in tales long after the last shimmer of her wings disappeared beyond the horizon. At the heart of this legacy was Sunfire, no ordinary dragon but a living embodiment of brilliance and majesty. His scales shimmered like molten gold, glowing with the intensity of sunlight itself, and his wings stretched wide, suffused with a delicate pink hue that caught and reflected daylight like a precious jewel. There was a regal aura about him, a breathtaking presence that made him one of the most visually striking dragons ever to take wing above the lands of Westeros. Known far and wide as the Golden Dragon, Sunfire was not merely a creature of immense strength, but a symbol of royalty, a tangible representation of the might and grandeur of the Targaryen line. For King Aegon II Targaryen, Sunfire was more than a mere mount. He was the living incarnation of the king's ambition and authority. His golden scales mirrored the gleaming crown upon Aegon's brow, reinforcing the bond between rider and beast, a connection forged in the flames of war and bound by blood. Aegon chose Sunfire not only for his breathtaking beauty, but for the raw, untamed power that shimmered beneath those radiant scales. The dragon's dazzling form even found its way into the king's personal sigil, a three-headed dragon with scales of pure gold, a bold declaration of Aegon's belief in his rightful claim to the throne of Westeros. But Sunfire's true value shone brightest on the battlefield. His radiant appearance was more than mere spectacle. It was a warning of the ferocity and fire that lay within. During the bloody and brutal conflict known as the Dance of the Dragons, Sunfire proved his mettle time and time again. In key battles, he fought valiantly alongside Aegon, his golden flames scorching the enemies of his rider with unrelenting fury. Among the most defining moments in his storied life was the Battle of Rook's Rest. There, Sunfire and the monstrous dragon Vhagar faced off against Meleys, the Red Queen, herself a dragon feared across the realm. The sky above Rook's Rest burned fiercely that day, a chaotic dance of fire and wings, and it was Sunfire's fiery assault that helped secure a decisive victory, bringing down the Red Queen alongside Vhagar and cementing his status as one of the deadliest dragons in the war. Yet despite his many triumphs, Sunfire's story was far from a tale of uninterrupted glory. The harsh realities of war left their mark, and he sustained devastating injuries that would ultimately seal his tragic fate. The majestic dragon who once ruled the skies with effortless grace was brought low, crippled by wounds that shattered his wings and grounded him, vulnerable and exposed. Though he survived the initial brutal encounter, his injuries never fully healed. The Golden Dragon, once a symbol of invincibility, became a shadow of his former self, his strength fading, but his spirit remaining fiercely unbroken. Even as his body weakened, Sunfire's loyalty to Aegon II remained unwavering. He continued to fight, driven by a bond that transcended pain and suffering. No longer the invincible force of old, the wounded dragon nonetheless demonstrated his enduring power in a desperate final act. Against a smaller dragon named Grey Ghost, Sunfire fought fiercely and emerged victorious, a testament to the fact that even in decline, his fire still burned brightly. Sunfire's death was slow and mournful, a gradual surrender to wounds that time and battle had deepened beyond repair. The Golden Dragon, who had once been the pride of Aegon's army, finally succumbed, his passing marking the end of a magnificent creature whose legacy would outlive the flames of the Dance of the Dragons. His story is a tragic reflection of the larger themes of that brutal civil war: the devastating cost of ambition, the toll exacted by power struggles, and the inevitable fading of even the brightest flames. There is an enduring theory that suggests Sunfire's injuries, particularly those sustained after his fierce clash with Meleys, may have been worsened by internal strife within Aegon's own camp. Some speculate that the king's paranoia and desperation to maintain his grip on the throne pushed the dragon beyond his limits, forcing him into battles he was no longer capable of fighting. According to this theory, Sunfire's unyielding loyalty to Aegon became his undoing, as the king's ambition demanded more from the dragon than his battered body could endure, ultimately hastening his decline. Whether or not this theory holds truth, it adds a profound layer of sorrow to Sunfire's already heartrending fate, a magnificent dragon brought low by the very ruler he pledged to serve. In the annals of Westerosi history, Sunfire remains one of the most iconic dragons ever to soar the skies. His golden scales, fierce loyalty, and pivotal role in the devastating Civil War left an indelible mark on the stories of dragons and kings alike. He was more than a beast of battle. He was a creature of royalty, a living symbol of power and majesty. Though his final years were marked by suffering and decline, Sunfire's legacy endures as a testament to fire, loyalty, and the tragic cost of wielding power. Not far behind in the tapestry of dragon lore was Terran, the Blue Queen, a dragon whose very presence commanded attention. Her cobalt blue scales shimmered like the deepest ocean depths, while her claws, crest, and belly glowed with a dazzling copper sheen. She was a creature of breathtaking beauty, drawing every eye when she soared through the skies. Yet beneath this striking exterior was a dragon built for war. A formidable warrior who, despite not possessing the colossal size of some of the older dragons, carried a fierce strength and a spirit that made her a fearsome opponent on the battlefield. But she was fierce, agile, and commanded the battlefield with an imposing presence that belied her youth. The title of the Blue Queen was not merely an homage to her striking appearance. It was a testament to the authority and unyielding strength she wielded in the chaos of war. Even as a young dragon, Terran embodied power and grace, a force that few could rival. She was bonded with Prince Daeron Targaryen, a figure etched deeply into the annals of history as Daeron the Daring. Though he was young himself, Daeron was recognized as one of the most fearless Targaryens to ever take part in the brutal civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. Together, this dynamic duo, the young prince and his cobalt-scaled Blue Queen, etched their names into legend. They charged into battle with a boldness that would forever cement their place in Westerosi history. Terran, swift and nimble in the air, became more than just a mount. She was an extension of Daeron's indomitable spirit, embodying the very daring that defined him. Though not the largest dragon on the battlefield, her presence was felt in every clash, every fiery confrontation that marked the Dance of the Dragons. Throughout the conflict, Terran earned her spurs in several key battles, but none would define her legacy more than the Second Battle of Tumbleton. This was a fierce, chaotic clash, an intense melee of dragons, steel, and fire that scarred the land and the people of Westeros for generations to come. In this brutal engagement, Terran faced two of the era's most fearsome dragons, Vermithor, known as the Bronze Fury, and Silverwing. Both were veterans of countless battles, monstrous beasts hardened by years of war and destruction. Though Terran was younger and smaller than her adversaries, her remarkable agility gave her a crucial edge. She darted through the skies with unmatched precision, striking swift and deadly blows that disrupted her enemies' formations. The battle itself was a violent, deadly ballet of fire and wings, with dragons tearing across the heavens in a thunderous storm of flame and fury. Terran, with her shimmering cobalt scales catching the sunlight, fought valiantly. Her copper-tipped wings sliced through the air as she unleashed blazing attacks, her every movement a testament to speed and skill. Yet the odds were stacked heavily against her. Vermithor's colossal size and battle-hardened experience made him a daunting opponent, while Silverwing's grace and power compounded the challenge. Despite her relentless speed and unyielding tenacity, Terran was ultimately outmatched. Her final moments in the battle were as tragic as they were heroic. Fatally wounded, she refused to yield, pressing on through the injuries that ravaged her body. Even as the tide turned against her, her will remained unbroken, her fire burning fiercely. In a last desperate surge, she took to the skies one final time, her loyalty to Daeron and unrelenting fighting spirit becoming a symbol of the Targaryen dragon's pivotal role in the Civil War. Terran's tragic death served as a poignant reminder that even these magnificent creatures, born of fire and power, were not invincible. Her loss at Tumbleton was more than the fall of a dragon. It was a devastating blow to Daeron and the Targaryen cause, a symbol of the tragic cost wrought by a war that pitted kin against kin and dragon against dragon. Terran's lifeless body, once so vibrant and full of life, fell to the blood-soaked earth, a grim testament to the brutal conflict that tore Westeros apart. Yet even in death, her legacy endured. She became one of the few dragons whose courage and determination continued to inspire long after the fires of the dance had dimmed. There is an intriguing theory that adds a deeper dimension to Taryn's story. Some believe her bond with Daeron was stronger than that of most dragon and rider pairs. This connection, they argue, fueled her extraordinary fighting spirit. According to this theory, Taryn's refusal to surrender, even as her wounds proved fatal, was not just a display of her own bravery, but a reflection of Daeron's indomitable will. It suggests that she fought not only for herself but for her rider, pushing beyond her limits because of the profound connection they shared. While impossible to confirm, the idea that her final stand was as much about loyalty as survival adds an additional layer of tragedy to her demise. Though Taryn's life was shorter than many dragons, her legacy as the Blue Queen remains as enduring as the cobalt scales that once gleamed in the skies above Westeros. She fought with the heart of a warrior, her agility and strength making her a formidable opponent even against larger foes. Her death at Tumbleton stands as a somber reminder of the devastating toll the Dance of the Dragons exacted, not only on the realm but on the dragons themselves. In the Chronicles of Westeros, Taryn's story is one of beauty, strength, and sacrifice. Her cobalt blue scales and copper claws presented a striking image amid the chaos of war. Her unwavering loyalty to Daeron the Daring forged her into a legend in her own right. Though her time was cut short, the impact she left on the war and on all who witnessed her in flight was undeniable. The Blue Queen soared with grace and battled with fierce, unyielding fire, leaving behind a legacy as unforgettable and fierce as the dragon she was. The story of another dragon, Arax, presents a different kind of tale, not one defined by dominance or unmatched power, but by loyalty and tragic fate. While larger dragons like Balerion or Vhagar ruled the skies with sheer might, Arax's strength lay in the bond he shared with his rider and the heartbreaking outcome of a single mission. Smaller in comparison, Arax's true power was found in his steadfast loyalty, a quality that would eventually place him at the heart of events that shaped history. One of the most heart-wrenching episodes in the saga, known as the Dance of the Dragons, centers on Lucerys Balerion, the second son of Rhaenyra Targaryen. Mounted upon his dragon, Arax, Lucerys set out on a mission fraught with peril. A mission critical to securing vital alliances in support of his mother's claim to the Iron Throne during the turbulent Targaryen civil war. Though young and inexperienced, and despite Arax's relatively smaller stature compared to the dragons soaring through Westeros' skies, Lucerys was entrusted with delivering an urgent message to Storm's End. There, he was to persuade Lord Barros Baratheon to lend his support to Rhaenyra's cause. This task, ostensibly diplomatic in nature, unfolded in a world where even diplomacy could quickly dissolve into deadly conflict. Arax was still maturing, his silver-white scales shimmering but lacking the intimidating grandeur of the older, mightier dragons. However, the bond between Lucerys and Arax was forged in trust and loyalty, qualities that would soon be put to the ultimate test upon their arrival at Storm's End. To Lucerys' dismay, the situation at Storm's End had already deteriorated before his arrival. His rival, Aemon Targaryen, had preceded him, riding the enormous and ancient dragon Vhagar. Vhagar was no ordinary beast. She was a living force of nature, the largest and oldest dragon alive, casting a long and terrifying shadow over the battered fortress of Storm's End. The tension between the two princes, Lucerys and Aemon, was steeped in bitter history and personal grievance. Aemon bore a deep grudge, seeking vengeance for the loss of his eye, which had been taken by Lucerys years earlier. The air was thick with hostility, and although Lucerys came with peace in mind, violence loomed dangerously close. Aemon's demand for retribution was sharp and unyielding. He taunted the young prince, calling for him to pay for the injury he had inflicted. Mindful of his mission, Lucerys sought to leave without conflict. He mounted Arax and took to the skies, but the storm gathering over Shipbreaker Bay mirrored the chaos about to unfold. As the dark clouds churned and lightning forked across the sky, what was meant to be a diplomatic mission transformed into a desperate flight for survival. Aemon, fueled by rage and vengeance, pursued Lucerys and Arax relentlessly on Vhagar. The chase was one of the most harrowing in the annals of the Dance of the Dragons. Though swift and agile, Arax was no match for the sheer size and ferocity of Vhagar. The storm itself seemed a participant in the deadly pursuit, with fierce winds and blinding flashes of lightning disorienting the smaller dragon. In a final act of defiance, Arax unleashed a burst of flame, attempting to hold off the relentless assault. But it was in vain. Vhagar, with overwhelming power, caught up to Arax in a brutal and decisive moment, tearing the young dragon in two. Lucerys and Arax plummeted into the stormy waters below, lost forever to the sea. Their bodies were never recovered, leaving a haunting void. The death of Arax and Lucerys marked a critical turning point in the Civil War, igniting waves of vengeance that deepened the conflict's already bloody course. The tragedy of Arax's story lies in the harsh reality of a young dragon and rider thrust into a deadly struggle for which they were ill-prepared. Their demise symbolized the futility and devastating cost of a war that pitted dragon against dragon and family against family. Despite their smaller size and relative inexperience, Arax's final flight remains one of the most unforgettable moments in the Dance of the Dragons, a testament to courage and loyalty even in the face of overwhelming odds. Speculation surrounds the last moments of Arax's flight. Some believe the raging storm played a crucial role, its wild and uncontrollable forces hampering Arax's ability to evade Vhagar, whose massive form could better weather the tempest. Others suggest that Lucerys' fear may have seeped into the bond with his dragon, weakening their connection and diminishing Arax's performance. Though these theories remain speculative, they add poignant depth to the already tragic tale. Ultimately, Arax's legacy is one of sacrifice and steadfastness. The bond between Lucerys and Arax, though cruelly severed, was built on trust and bravery. Their deaths became a spark that fueled the fire of vengeance and further violence in the Dance of the Dragons. Arax may not have been the largest or most terrifying dragon, but his story reminds us of the heavy price paid by even the youngest and smallest of dragons caught in this brutal conflict. The dragons of Westeros, far more than mere beasts of myth, were central to the power and identity of House Targaryen. From the days of Aegon the Conqueror, when dragons united the Seven Kingdoms under a single rule, to the final chapters of Daenerys Targaryen's saga, these magnificent creatures shaped empires and left indelible marks on history. Each dragon and its rider told a unique story of power, tragedy, and unbreakable bonds. From Balerion, the Black Dread, whose fiery breath forged the Iron Throne itself, to the fiercely independent Drogon, dragons were not just engines of war. They embodied the fiery spirit of House Targaryen. Their connection with their riders transcended mere control, reaching into realms of loyalty, trust, and profound companionship. These dragons symbolized Targaryen dominance and the fire and blood legacy that defined the dynasty's rise. Yet, despite their power, dragons were subject to the whims of their riders and the harsh realities of the world they inhabited. Over centuries, dragons played pivotal roles in conquest, civil war, and personal quests. Some, like Silverwing, stood as symbols of peace and stability during long reigns, while others, like Vhagar, thundered into battle during times of brutal civil strife. The tragic tales of younger dragons, such as Rhaegal and Viserion, reveal the deep emotional bonds forged between dragon and rider and the devastating costs borne by both. The tragedy of dragons in the world of Game of Thrones lies not only in their immense power, but also in how that power was often misused or misunderstood. While dragons like Drogon helped Daenerys Targaryen claim her destiny, they were also central to some of the most catastrophic moments in the saga. Moments when fire and blood consumed cities and shifted the fates of kingdoms in an instant. These creatures, so intimately tied to House Targaryen, bore witness to the rise and fall of dynasties. Their extinction was intertwined with human betrayal and the downfall of the house itself. Dragons, for all their grandeur, were not invincible. Their lives were marked by fierce battles, and their deaths were often as spectacular and devastating as their lives. The Red Queen, for example, fought valiantly, but was overwhelmed by mightier foes. Arax died defending his rider in a hopeless battle. Even the mightiest dragons, such as Vhagar, met fiery ends, leaving skies darkened with smoke and ash, forever altering the world below. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of dragons in the lore is their mystique. Tales of dragon eggs hatching under strange circumstances, Silverwing's refusal to fly beyond the wall, or theories surrounding the reanimated Viserion raise profound questions about what dragons truly are. Are they merely creatures of raw power, or beings connected to mysterious forces beyond human understanding? Their intelligence, loyalty, and destructive capacity weave a mythology that elevates them beyond animals to legendary beings, integral to the very fabric of Westeros' past and future.